Just coming at you guys for a late Friday night chat. I've been doing a bunch of work. I've just really been working here over the last few hours, just working on a few projects, getting some tasks done. And I figured I'd pause for a second and just kind of go live for a minute just to have a conversation with the Y2K crew. Um, just a little bit about something a little different about some things that I see happening within the community moving into 2026. And I think you're going to see this divide happen amongst multiple hobbies and different interests, but I do think it's going to happen when it comes to the gaming community. What's going on, BZ? How you doing? Um, and just from what I'm seeing and what I'm looking at, I definitely feel like we are going to start to see more of a divide in 2026 and beyond when it comes to the types of content that people look for and the types of content that people enjoy, and really just the usage overall of modern gaming systems, modern social media, YouTube. I think you're going to start to see some changes happen in 2026. And it's very interesting. The more like I read into this stuff, the more I look at some of these things. It's really interesting to see how things are shifting, because during the pandemic, a lot of people were on social media, especially YouTube. During the pandemic, I think there was like an apex, there was a climax. Thanks, man. I hope you had a great Christmas too. But during the pandemic, there was like this climax of social media usage. And I think now at 2025 going into 2026, I feel like, well, even not even, it's not even a feeling, like the statistics are showing this, that social media usage, especially amongst like the younger generation, is coming to a crawl. Like it's really starting to come to a halt. And more people are really interested in having like real life experiences. And I think some of this is being driven by the distaste that people are starting to have for a lot of this AI generated content. Now, don't get me wrong, I've dabbled with AI myself as a content creator just to see what it was about, just to see how it works. But there is a strong dislike for AI content. Like a lot of people just can't stand it. And I know even on the channel, some of you guys have kind of given me your thoughts and feelings on it. Some of you have felt like, the AI stuff is just super, it's just slop is what the term has been. It doesn't feel authentic, it doesn't feel organic. And so a lot of people just really are not into it. But I think that in 2026, you're going to start to see a divide, because there's going to be a group of people that understand the future and understand that artificial intelligence is going to become almost like a necessary part of societal development. I mean, it's here to stay. It's going to be here. It's not going anywhere. And I think people are going to continue to try and ignore it until they can't ignore it anymore. Um, People are going to continue to try to ignore it until it becomes something that they teach kids in school, until it becomes something that politicians and regulators and lawmakers begin to weigh in on. And I think because it's really just being viewed at a corporate level as something that can be used to drive productivity, most people are like, well, you know what, I can avoid it. But there's that group of people who are really embracing it. And obviously you're going to have some content creators embrace it because it makes making content a lot easier. Thumbnails, I mean, some of your favorite content creators are already using AI, whether you realize it or not. But I think that there's going to be this divide, and I think it's going to impact the gaming community uniquely, because the the traditionalists, the folks that really are diehard gamers, I think they're going to start to turn more to older systems, because if you don't think, um, Brotato Chip, what's going on? I'm home, man. I'm home. I'm home, just reading a couple books and working on some projects. I have some things coming up in January that I'll share with the channel, but I'm home working. I just took a break to go live for a second to chop it up with you guys on this Friday night. It's late. It's about to be midnight out here on the East Coast. So right now I'm on the East Coast. So it's about to be late, but I drank a coffee late this evening because I knew I was going to be up getting some work done. And so that's kind of what I'm doing right now. If you're wondering why there's like a slight echo, it's because I'm in the room that was once my game room. And because there's no games in here, it's like this ominous echo in here. It sucks. Feels weird. Mr. Rightway, what's going on? AI is a good tool. It is. There's a lot of good tools that can come about from AI. Um, Jesse, what's going on? What do I got coming soon? I've got some cool news. I don't want to let the cat out the bag yet. I don't want to I don't want to speak too soon, but I've got some things percolating and some things that I'm working on. So, um, pretty hype about what's coming. So, yeah, I don't want to say too much, but thank you. But yeah, man, I mean, look, I think that AI is going to start to be used with these gaming companies real soon, if they're not using it already. If you think these gaming studios can lay off thousands of programmers, thousands of developers, thousands of, I mean, these gaming companies are laying off people by the thousands, man. And like I said earlier in my earlier video, I've been a part of a layoff before. Um, and a lot of these companies, when they lay people off, they typically tell whoever's left to utilize the tools that they have to be just as productive. And so if you don't think that these gaming studios are going to start using AI agents to develop and write code for the games of the future, get ready. I mean, if you think Ready Player One was just a movie, like I know sometimes we watch movies and we're like, there's no way that that could happen. And like I'm a kid who grew up in the '90s, right? And there were certain movies that I saw in the '90s that I was like, man, no way is there ever gonna be a day where you can talk to someone and look at their, see them through your phone. And here we are, we've got video calls. Like now, if you were born in like 2000 and whatever, like if you were born in the 2000s, that's not that far fetched of an idea for you, because you've grown up in an era of technology. But if you were born in the 80s, like if you were a kid back in like 85, you never would have thought like you would have had the ability to video call someone. That just seemed like something from the Jetsons. You know what I'm saying? Like you would never believe that. But here we are now in 2025, and you can do that very easily, right? And there was a point, you never would have thought, like there was this TV show that used to come on PBS. It was called Ghost Rider. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, but if you get a chance, look it up. It's called Ghost Rider. It's a pretty cool, pretty cool show. And basically, it was a bunch of kids. In the '90s, it was so funny. Like most shows in the '90s, like they had to ensure they had every cultural representation. So it was always like a black dude with a flat top and like a little Asian girl, and then a white guy, and then like a Spanish girl. They always did that. They did it with Power Rangers. They did it with all the shows. Um, but with Ghost Rider, I remember it was a group of kids, and there was this computer program that they could write to, and Ghost Rider would like, like it could speak to them using any kind of written, anything written. So Ghost Rider could take words on the page, like the letters on the page of a book, like this book right here. They'd be like, Ghost Rider, like, do you see what's going on? And like Ghost Rider would rearrange the words on this book to write a message to the kids. And you would also see Ghost Rider, like they would type in a computer. They would say, hey, Ghost Rider, can you find blah, blah, blah? And, Ghost Rider would write back to them on the computer. You usually saw Ghost Rider on the computer. And if you look at Chat GPT is like Ghost Rider, dude. It's like you can literally write to Chat GPT and have a full on conversation with Chat GPT. I'm not talking about like, hey, write my paper for me, or hey, like, how many pizza shops are within a 5 mile radius. You can have a full-fledged productive conversation with Chat GPT to thoroughly figure out a project, right? Like if you have a project around the house. Oh, that's my old Casio watch. If you guys hear that beeping, yep, it's the strike of midnight. That's right. Um, but you could actually do that with ChatGPT now, and I'm laying the foundation for a point here. My point is that all these things that we saw growing up, and again, if you're someone who was born in like 2012, you're not gonna understand this because you grew up in that era of technology. But if you're someone who grew up in the 80s or the 90s, you'll understand how much we've advanced in the last 30 years. And so when you think about a movie like Ready Player One, the Oasis, we're not that far from the Oasis. We're really not. And for those of you who haven't seen the movie, I don't want to spoil it for you, but the Oasis was basically a virtual reality. It was the virtual world that everyone who played the game, you know, people no longer went outside. They just engaged with each other in the Oasis. And you got to watch the movie to know what I'm talking about. But I'm saying all that to say that once they get the right language models, and language models is basically, a language model is the programming of a system that allows it to use regular written language, like verbal language, to interact with us, as opposed to like coding. Like back in the day when I was going to college, we were told, go become a computer engineer, learn how to write code, learn how to write JavaScript, learn how to write Python, learn how to vibe code. That's what we were taught, you know. But these days, you don't need to know how to do that. You don't need to know JavaScript. You don't need to know Python. You don't need to know vibe coding. You can just with the way these language models work, you can literally just tell it what you want, and it will automatically build it for you, or it will write the code for you that you can then go take to build these things. And when you extrapolate and apply this thinking to the video game world, right? Imagine if you had 10 AI agents that never went to sleep, that never took a break, that never needed a nap, that never needed sick days or anything like that. And you had these 10 AI agents that you programmed to write the code necessary to build out video game worlds. You could build endless video game worlds. You could build an endless video game universe, for that matter. And if you think about that, as again, when I think about that, right, I think about all the games that I played as a kid, the 3D games that I played that had this like invisible barrier. Like it looked like you could run off to the distance, but like once you got to a certain point, like it stopped you, like you were just running in place. Like it used to happen with Mario 64, right? Like I remember the first time I played Mario 64 in the mid 90s, I was like, oh my God, Super Mario's in this world. He can fly and he can, and when you look at the horizon, well, back then it looked very realistic. It doesn't look that way now. But back then, when you looked at the horizon as you were flying with Mario, the way the horizon looked, it looked like you could just keep flying out into the horizon. But you couldn't, right? Like everybody who's played Super Mario 64 knows that like once you fly to a certain point, that that barrier, the parameters, they lock you in. Even with a game as open as with as open feeling as like Shadow of the Colossus, right? You feel like you can like run for miles and miles through a field in Shadow of Colossus. But even with Shadow of the Colossus, there were barriers, there were limits to how far you could go. You couldn't just keep running endlessly. But now imagine a video game world where there's literally no bounds. Like there's no invisible barrier. You can just keep running and running and running, and not just running into wilderness, but like keep running and you actually see things. You see new NPCs. Like you can literally run from America to Japan, and it's like the way that the programming is done, and you feel like you're actually in Japan, and then you run from Japan to Africa, right? And then you run back to the U.S. And then once you're bored with the planet Earth, you get in a rocket and you fly off to Mars, and you run that planet, and then you just leave this whole galaxy altogether and you fly like this. It sounds funny, but you can do that if you have generative AI powering the creation of these video game worlds. And I think some people are gonna like it and some people are not gonna like it. Some people are gonna embrace it and some people are not gonna embrace it. Some people are gonna feel like it's not authentic, it's not real, it's not, and some people are just really going to buy into this future that is coming whether you like it or not. Um, and me, I'm old school, right? Like I'm very old school. Like I really don't like doing anything new. I'm like a set it and forget it kind of guy. I don't tinker with all the new apps. I don't need the newest stuff. Like I don't, I just downloaded CapCut for the first time like the other day. Like I still like edit all my edited videos. I still make those in iMovie, right? Like I don't use like Final Cut or like Adobe Premiere. I don't use any of that stuff. I'm like super old school, but in 2026, I know that I have to adapt. Like you have to adapt. You have to be at least open to the idea of adapting to a new world, because it's coming. And I think we're going to see that in 2026 for sure. And the writing is on the wall just with the console sales. People are fatigued of the same stuff that we've been getting pretty much for the last 2 decades. People are fatigued of that stuff. I think people are fatigued of consoles. In fact, I think in a couple of years, people are going to be fatigued of cell phones. The Google glasses, like smart glasses, those seem very gimmicky right now, I think, to most people. Like, most people can't find like a genuine use case for like smart glasses. They're like, well, why would I need smart glasses? Like, well, I'll just use my phone. But imagine an era where you don't need to scroll for anything. Imagine that. Imagine if you didn't have to get your phone out and type something in on the screen and scroll to find it. If you could just speak it into existence. Wow. Like that's powerful. Like with just some glasses, you could just start speaking things into existence. And I think some things are just so much of a change to the way people live every day, that just thinking about operating in certain ways just seems so far-fetched that they can't fathom it, or it just makes them uncomfortable and they just dismiss it. They're like, nah, I'll stick with what I got. And I totally understand that sentiment because, like I said, I'm a set it and forget it kind of guy. I typically don't like to do something new, but like I said, I think it's coming whether we like it or not, and we're going to see a divide. We're going to see a divide. I think we're gonna see older gamers start to cling more to their retro stuff. Some for nostalgia reasons, others because they're just familiar with it and they know it and they don't want to do anything different. But I do think you're gonna see a younger generation that opts for just something different. They're gonna embrace the new. They're gonna embrace the modern. They're gonna embrace the here and the now. And I think you're gonna see it reflected in sales. I think game companies, hopefully they're adapting and they're adjusting, because if not, they're going to see it in game sales. You're going to see it in console sales, and it's definitely going to be a change. But What say you? What do you guys think? I could ramble on with this with these hypotheses all night long. I'm hyped up on coffee. Actually, I think I'm getting ready to crash and burn. I was doing a lot of work. I was typing up a storm. Um, but let me know what you guys think. I'm interested to know, especially once this hits the page. Let me know what you guys think about the future. Do you think there's going to be any type of divide? Do you think that things are going to stay the same, or do you think there is going to be a somewhat of a rift between the new school and the old school? I'm interested to know your thoughts. What we got here? Mig says, "Yo, Microsoft probably doing a lot of ass shit with the new Halo trilogy." Could be right. You could be right. Listen, if you don't think these companies, especially anything that has to do with programming, writing code, software, that is the easiest. Those are the easiest things to automate. The easiest. You can't automate a plumber. You can't automate an electrician. I had to have some guys come take a look at my roof because I need to do some stuff on my roof. And you can't automate that. You need a guy to actually come out and like get a ladder out and climb up on the roof, right? Well, not really, because one of the guys that came, he actually had a drone, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it's cost effective too, and it's more efficient. Less dangerous too. But yeah, man, it's coming whether you like it or not. Let me know what you guys think. Hopefully, you guys have a great weekend. I'll catch you in the next one. It's the Y2K